That evening felt heavier than usual, as though every quiet sound in the house held some unspoken message. My father's condition had worsened over the past few days, and the doctors said it wouldn't be long. We all understood, but understanding didn't make it easier. The man who'd once been my hero, full of life and strength, now lay frail and quiet in bed. Each shallow breath he took was like a reminder of how fragile life can become. The family had gathered during the day, filling the house with familiar voices and laughter in the way only memories of shared love can. They wanted to remind him of the life he'd lived, the people he loved, and all the little moments that built his legacy. But as night approached, the crowd thinned, and one by one, they left, giving us space for these final quiet hours. I had volunteered to stay, and though I'd spent the entire day by his side, it felt like we'd only just begun to understand all that needed to be said. I sat in the shadows of the room, watching his soft breathing and listening to the hum of machines. The room was dim, lit only by the lamp on the bedside table, casting a warm glow over his face. I reached over, taking his hand gently in mine. His skin felt papery thin, his once strong fingers barely curling around mine, but they still held the familiar warmth I remembered. It was a touch I had known my whole life, one that had reassured me through scraped knees, heartbreaks, and moments of doubt. Holding his hand now, I wanted to offer him that same reassurance, that same feeling of safety and love he'd given me all these years. As I sat there, memories flooded me, each one as vivid as if it had just happened yesterday. I thought about the summer trips to the lake when I was young, how he'd teach me to swim and make me laugh until my stomach hurt. I remembered the smell of his old leather jacket, worn and frayed at the edges, that I'd begged to wear even though it drowned me. I thought of his voice, steady and calming, as he'd read me bedtime stories and kissed me goodnight. "Are you still here?" His voice, though barely more than a whisper, brought me back to the present. I leaned in closer, my hand tightening around his as I met his gaze. His eyes, though tired, were as gentle as ever. "Of course, Dad," I replied softly, trying to hold back the lump in my throat. The truth was, I didn't want to leave him, not for a second. This moment felt like a gift, a chance to be there for him as he had always been there for me. He gave a faint smile, his lips barely curving, but it was enough. "Good. Good," he murmured before his eyes drifted shut again, his hand relaxing in mine. I sat there, the room silent around us, save for the steady hum of the machines. I wanted to remember everything about this moment, the quiet intimacy of the room, the softness of his hand in mine, the warmth of his presence, even in the face of his fading strength. It struck me that I had spent so many years growing up, living my own life, and in this final hour I found myself wishing for all those times back, the moments I had taken for granted. We sat in that silence, and I felt an overwhelming gratitude. He'd been more than a father. He'd been a friend, a mentor, a guiding light when I needed it most. His life, though now drawing to an end, had been full, and it was his presence that had shaped so much of mine. I leaned back, closing my eyes, letting the memories wash over me again. Time moved strangely that night. Minutes seemed to stretch into hours, yet everything felt fleeting, like sand slipping through my fingers. At times he would open his eyes, give me a gentle look, and then drift back to sleep. Each time he looked at me, it felt like he was saying goodbye in his own way, a silent farewell shared through glances and gentle squeezes of my hand. I must have drifted off to sleep, lulled by the soft rhythm of his breathing. As the first light of dawn began to seep through the windows, I woke to find his breathing had changed. It was slower, more labored, and I felt a rush of pain, a sudden realization that time was slipping away. I leaned closer, holding his hand tightly, as though I could keep him here a moment longer if I tried hard enough. My heart ached with the weight of it all, the inevitability of what was to come. "It's okay, Dad," I whispered, my voice breaking. "You can rest now. I'll be okay." He took one final shallow breath, and then there was stillness. In that silence, I stayed, my hand still wrapped around his, even as I felt the weight of his absence settle into the room. It was as though the world had paused, giving me this one last moment to say goodbye, to let go. Tears slipped down my cheeks as I held his hand, a strange mix of sadness and peace settling over me. I thought of everything he'd taught me, all the ways he'd prepared me for this moment, and in that stillness, I felt his love surround me. I don't know how long I stayed there, holding on to the memory of his warmth. Eventually, I pulled away, knowing that though he was gone, he'd never truly leave me. He'd live on in every lesson he'd taught me, in every memory we'd shared, in every quiet moment where I'd still feel his presence. As I stood up and looked around the room one last time, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. This night, though heartbreaking, had been a gift, a chance to be with him, to share in the final moments of his journey, to say goodbye. And though it hurt, I knew he'd left me with everything I'd need to carry on, with the strength he'd taught me, the love he'd shown me, and the memories that would last a lifetime. I took a deep breath, feeling the dawn light warm my face, and whispered a final goodbye. Walking out of that room felt like closing a chapter, yet I knew that the love we shared would continue, a part of me forever.